can a Catholic engage in skydiving? There's a question for you, and it's kind of an interesting one in which to begin a Christmas homily, but there's a reason why I'm asking that question. First, let us go back and let us look what Christmas is all about. And there we see that Jesus became incarnate. The Son of God came to be one of us, fully human as well as being fully divine. Yet he didn't just walk in on the scene. He just didn't fall from the sky. He just didn't appear as an adult and start preaching. He became one of us right from conception, right to his death on the cross. That's important because we were redeemed because he became one of us completely. Had that not happened, we would not be redeemed. But many people will say, he was one like us in all things but sin. That statement is perfectly true, but it's not completely true. There's more there that needs to be discussed. St. Maximus the Confessor, who wrote in the 4th century, wrote some of the most powerful and deep spiritual writing. And he explained that Jesus was not here just not to sin. You see, he had to be the fulfillment of the law, and the law is a law of love. So he had to love fully. He had to love the Father with all his heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love his neighbor as himself. He had to love fully. So it wasn't just about not sinning, it was about loving. And so it was a different call that he had to do. When you look at that, you can see that it's very different than just not sinning. You can live in a cave and not sin. I lived as a hermit for 2 weeks, 2-week periods at a time. And it's very easy to live at that period not sinning, but your issue is you want to love. Love with everything you have, and that's what Jesus did. In fact, St. Maximus taught that Jesus' suffering on the cross was a temptation to get him not to sin, but to choose not to love, because for any period of time, if he did not love, you and I would be lost. It's all about love, and that's what Jesus did. And so it's profound. And so at every stage of his life, he had to learn how to love as a child, how to love as a teenager, and how to love as an adult. Imagine this scenario. Now, this scenario is not in the Bible, but I just want you to imagine the scenario because it's very possible that there he is as a 10-year-old son, and his father has just built a cabinet that someone ordered. And the person they know, he's a neighbor, and they know he's always going to try to see if he can get a discount, see if he can get something for less money. And we know everyone does that in every culture. And all of a sudden the man comes along and he starts to find something wrong. He said, I wanted something that was 5.5 cubits, and you've made it 5 3/8 cubits. That's not what I ordered. I'm not going to pay you 1 denarius. I'm going to pay you 75% of a denarius. And the man is yelling and he's screaming. And Jesus is looking up as the son, looking at the way his father is being treated and maybe learning from his father how to respond. But Jesus has to learn to love that man too. And as he grows older and he deals with the realities of the world until finally he comes to his ministry where he's being threatened and harassed and screamed at by the Pharisees. And he's got to love them too. And he had to learn how to love them completely. That's what Jesus actually did. It wasn't just a matter of not sinning, it was loving completely. And that brings me back to my question. See, we understand that skydiving is a risk. And I brought that up as an example because true love is a risk. It involves risk and sacrifice along with everything else. It involves courage that is part of risk, going against the grain. It involves all that you see in Isaiah that describes who Jesus is, that are the gifts of the Holy Spirit. But it involves risk and sacrifice. Living a life without sin doesn't necessarily involve that. Living a life in love always does, because it involves those two things, that going that extra mile or more, sacrificing and taking that risk because you're sacrificing. Risk and sacrifice are the two things that go together that are part of love. when I asked that question about skydiving, because skydiving is a risk. And maybe someone who skydives learns about risk. Because it is. I remember people will tell you there's no such thing as a stupid question. Well, that's not true. There is. And I've asked it. I was at a place going to skydive back in about 1980. And, I had to sign all these forms. Says, I will not sue if I get injured. My family will not sue if I die. We won't even name anyone named Sue if I get married. Just the whole bit. And I asked the question to the man who ran the place. Is this dangerous? It's got to be the dumbest question I ever asked in my life. Well, of course it's dangerous. You're taking a big risk when you're going to jump out of an airplane at 90 miles an hour, 3,000 feet in the air. But it is a risk. And what Jesus did was a risk. And he came and took that risk so that you and I would be saved. And he sacrificed everything so that you and I would be saved, because that's what love involves, risk and sacrifice, and that's what he did. Until the point on the cross, he gave everything. He risks being tempted by the devil, even on the cross, who tried to get him not to love, so that you and I would be saved. Many people don't understand that Catholicism is an adventure, because it involves giving ourselves and going that extra mile so that we may be people of love. It is that powerful, and that's what you and I are called to do. When we look at that, we can see this powerful moment where Jesus begins his life as he is born, giving everything he has that you and I can be saved, and showed us the way to walk that path, that walk that involves true love and involves those two powerful things, risk and sacrifice. Merry Christmas, and may God bless you.